Well, welcome everyone. I'm here with Mike and Grant. I'm Jamie, and this is Three Guys, One Music. And we're going to talk a little bit today about bands who have hits with an atypical style that are is not typical of what they normally sound like. So we have not discussed this amongst ourselves, so we'll see how it goes. But first, we're just, which is going to be sort of a tradition. We're just going to ask what we've each been listening to and get into it and go from there. So either one of you want to start with what you've been listening to this week?
I'll start.
All right.
Yeah, only three things this week come to mind on multiple listens. The Church, Gold Afternoon Fix from the late 80s, early 90s.
Wasn't Gold 1990?
It might have been, yeah. I can't remember exactly.
I was dating a gal at that time that offered it to me for free, and I want to say it was 1990. That's the only reason why that occurred to me.
Offered the album to you. Let's clarify.
Well, the CD.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was actually her previous boyfriend's. She wanted to give it to me to be a jerk to him, I think is what it was. So,
Okay.
Gotcha.
so I think it was 1990.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Band of Horses.
Nice.
Is that All Good Things? Is that the name of the album? All Great Things. I think it's all great.
I've was really into, and is it Infinity Arms? 2010-ish. I was really into that record and listened to that a lot when I was in California. Really hit the spot, but I kind of got out of them after a while. But I'm a fan. I really like their style a lot.
I don't listen to them often, but when I do, I'm like, oh yeah, I like this, I like that, blah blah blah.
Good band.
But, is that their first album?
No, that's their latest album.
Oh, their latest.
I think it was 2022, maybe. I'm not certain about that.
I'm not sure.
And then the always classic Women and Children First by everyone's favorite Van Halen.
Nice.
Excellent choice.
Yep. And
it's a nice segment of different styles.
I'm always
that's
doing that.
Typical of what you do, it seems like.
Yeah,
cool.
I don't stick with rarely do I stick with one band or one genre all week. And like I said, this is sparse, really. I listen to each album at different times, but I just listen to the whole album each time, not cutting, not picking and choosing, just like I'm gonna put this on, I'm gonna listen to it, and then listen to something else or don't listen to anything, because I don't listen to music 24/7. I know I need that break, whatever. But that was me. Just there's three things this week.
How about you, Mike?
Okay. One thing that hit me right as I got in the car on Monday morning was, let me look at my list here, make sure I'm not leaving anything out. The first song I heard for the week, and I thought I'm going to remember that for this podcast, Never My Love by The Association.
Gotcha.
Oh, wow.
Such a great song.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I was listening to, what channel that it came on, but what a great song, The Association.
I think that's my favorite from them.
Yeah.
There's some stuff by them like Wendy that I think, I don't know. It's a little questionable, although it was a big hit. That was actually a hit the day that I was, like, the week I was born. It was a hit.
Right. All right.
But Never My Love, I think, is a far better song.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
good
song. Another song that really, it's one of my favorites, is Walk Away Renee.
I don't know that one.
By the Left Bank. You don't know that?
You
I
don't
think so.
Wow.
Oh man. There's something it's something reminded me of it, and I put it in the Spotify to listen to, and it started me on that path of psychedelic music at that time, the late 60s. And there's something ethereal and emotional about that song, and it just draws you in. It's got that vibe. It's really hard to describe, but Walk Away Renee by the Left Bank is just a great song. It's one of my favorites.
I'll have to check that out. Maybe I've heard it and I just don't recognize it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have.
67, maybe. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know the dates. The only other thing that really stands out I listen to that I usually have something in mind when I look for something to play, but I really couldn't come up with anything. I wasn't inspired by anything. I listened to Aqualung, and I listened to it all the way through twice this weekend.
Nice.
What a great rock album. And it's actually produced really well for the time, I think.
I like it. Yeah.
All the instruments stand out. So
yeah, separation between them.
Yeah, really good rock album.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that record. I would say that's probably, I don't know. There's a lot of great songs on that record. My God, Locomotive Breath, Cross-Eyed Mary, title track, of course.
Yeah.
That is a strong record. I think Martin Barr, I think I'd read a long time ago that he recorded the solo for Aqualung, and Jimmy Page walked into the studio while he was recording the solo, laying it down. I always think about that every time I hear the solo to that. But yeah, I think I enjoyed the previous record, Benefit, almost as much.
Yeah,
that's a great record.
Well,
as
far as Jethro Tull, Songs from the Woods is my favorite album. It's so unique, it leans hard on that folky sound, and the instrumentation, and again, everything's recorded so well. So I really like that album. But Aqualung, classic, so many songs on there most people know. When you hear it, it's Jethro Tull.
Jethro Tull will come up again shortly.
All right.
Yes, they are included in my list. I saw an interview with REM a few days ago, and I guess they got inducted to the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mike Mills was on Rick Beato 2 or 3 days ago, and I watched that interview.
Yeah.
And it really inspired me to kind of get back into their catalogs. So for the last 3 days, I've been heavily into REM. So that's going to basically be what I've listened to. I basically bought just about their entire catalog here the last couple of days, and just listened to a lot of things that I didn't really spend a lot of time on. I was such a casual Surface fan, the obvious stuff. And when they had plenty of hits, but when I listened back to the records, I thought, God, these guys were really strong songwriters.
Oh yeah.
They have quite a few songs that have stayed in the public consciousness, for a reason. And the two records that I really never spent a lot of time on have become two that I've listened to almost exclusively. And that's Document from '87 and then Green from '88.
I saw the tour, the Green tour. And
I did too. I saw them in Durham, and it was fun. Yeah. I mean, they were great. I wish I'd have seen the Greensboro show, but actually that's on they released that show.
I know.
That's on their 25th anniversary, I guess. The other record was a record when Mike and I were playing together, which was Monster. No, that came out after we stopped playing together, but it was around that time. I didn't think much of it at the time. What's the Frequency, Kenneth, and some of that stuff. I just thought it was, I don't know. But I've really enjoyed listening to that.
That's the first Bill Berry-less album, right?
No. He left, I think.
Album before.
No. He left in '97. So either, I want to say New Adventures in Hi-Fi might have been the first record, or Reveal. One of those two would have been the first.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. But I do know that The Great Beyond, that's the song that from the Man in the Moon soundtrack.
Yeah.
That completely went over my head at the time. I didn't appreciate it. And now I realize that is a great song. And I really appreciated that. And, not to get too heavy, but I was dealing with a lot of family turmoil at the time. I'd lost a couple of family members, and I was just not in a place that I could really enjoy some of that stuff. It just,
it's hard
that
to
was a period of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've really kind of listened to those things with fresh ears, and I've really enjoyed a lot of the stuff that I just never really listened to. And it's been nice. So yeah, I've got a bunch of REM playlists on my phone currently, and yeah, that's what I've been listening to for the last several days. It's been fun.
Yeah, I saw that interview that you were talking about on CBS, and
Yeah.
I thought that's going to be my playlist for next week. I'm going to have to dive in. I really like their first album, Beyond Radio Free Europe. I couldn't name any of the songs, but I remember listening to it and being impressed with the vibe, the emotion it puts through.
Talk about the Passion is one of probably my favorite off of that record.
Yeah, that's a really good album, really good
yeah.
debut, and they just kept getting better.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, excellent song.
A lot of their what people would refer to maybe as deep cuts are better to me than the singles. The songs that people know, you know, you're like, oh, wait a minute, you think that's good? Listen to this, you know.
Yeah, I would say that the stuff that I've really enjoyed has been the deeper cuts, but you know, the hits are so good. I mean, if you like REM, you know, you either like them or you don't, you know, but I always liked them. I never thought, oh God, these are the best ever, but you know, they were good and they were catchy. And I can remember some people really putting down Everybody Hurts when that came out. And I thought, it's not really my thing, but it's memorable. And when you listen to it, it stays with you, you know, and obviously, you know, the message is what it is, you know, but it's not something that I dislike, you know, but the song Find the River from Automatic for the People was always one of my favorites.
Great song.
That's in my top 10 REM songs. That's a deep track for me. I've always enjoyed it. So yeah, it's been really nice to revisit some of those things. And I could name a bunch of tracks, which I want, but yeah, it's for people who haven't really spent a lot of time on REM. There's a lot there to listen to. So
yeah,
definitely,
it's been nice.
Well, like you said, more than just the hits.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Good music.
All right, so we're going to get into our topic here. I'm going to look at my list, and there's a few questionable things that I've got on my list that are maybe is a little stretch, but I'm pretty happy with my list. But does anybody want to go first?
I'll go first with the most obvious one.
We have a volunteer.
Since
all right,
it's
I'm just curious if you're going to get mine. Yeah, I have a feeling one of you are going to get mine.
Yeah, I mean, I have a longer list than I thought.
Oh wow!
Because
I've got like 3, and you've got quite a page.
You can't see that. I was initially, when I was talking about the topic, had suggested 3 or 4, and then I thought, and then I got to thinking this week, okay, what other ones are there besides the ones I've already initially thought? But anyway, Beth by Kiss is the one that even made me think about this topic, because obviously, you know, rocky, poppy, heavy, distorted songs, you know, screaming vocals, loud vocals, and then here comes this piano song and a raspy voice, and it's their biggest hit. You know, it brought so many people into the Kiss army.
Yeah.
I'm backwards on the screen. Sorry.
So
Kiss army. And, but anyway, that's the most, and I think everybody can agree that, you know, nothing had sounded like that from them before. So that's what made me, even some songs like that made me think of the topic. I have another Kiss song, but I'm going to save it in case it's one of you guys got it. I don't want to steal it.
I don't have a Kiss on my list.
Okay. So, well, I got one more.
Yeah.
But
God of Thunder has little in common with a ballad with strings and piano.
Yes, exactly.
So quite the departure.
Yeah, I didn't think there was going to be any discussion or any kind of like, I'm not sure about that, you know. So I think we all can agree. But yeah, Beth is definitely the atypical, out of type song for that band, and like I said, that's what initially made me think of this whole thing. But
Sonically, Destroyer, which is a record that came from, is still maybe my favorite Kiss record.
Eddie Kramer produced that?
No, that was Bob Ezrin.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Eddie Kramer did Alive, and He did the next few records. He did
Yeah,
Rock and
I
Roll
think he
Over. Rock and Roll Over is considered a lot of fans' favorites, but it's and it's great. It has some great songs on it. It's very Kiss, but
Yeah.
sonically, Destroyer is just
Oh,
fantastic.
yeah.
I
it
love
is.
the guitar sounds on that record, and I love the drums. I think that's the best Peter ever sounded sonically. I think the drums are really recorded well on that record.
Yeah.
And the songs are there, you know. I mean, Shout It Out Loud, Detroit Rock City, King of the Nighttime World, God of Thunder.
Yeah.
That's
Definitely.
good stuff. Do You Love Me? That's a strong record. And those
Yeah.
songs stayed in their set list for years. So they did the job right, you know. But yeah, Beth is definitely, I would say, as strong a contender for any song in this category as we could come up with. So yeah, good
It's
choice.
kind of obvious. So, like I said, I'm just going
Yeah.
with the obvious at first. But
Okay. All right. How
right.
about you, Mike?
The first song that comes to mind for me would be "Owner of a Lonely Heart." When
I had that too.
I was a big fan of Yes, and I heard
Yeah.
they got back together. I'm like, this is awesome. And I heard it on the radio. I remember the first time I heard it, the announcer said, "Here's a new song by Yes." And I'm pulling into the parking lot at the apartments I lived at the time. And this song comes on, and I'm like, what the hell is this? This is so off the wall, man, compared to what I expected.
Yeah, it was like a
You
pop
know.
song.
Yeah, it was like a pop song at the time. But you know, Trevor Horn put his mark on everything he touched, and he was the uncredited member of the band. I think he really made that song, that album. But
The two Trevors.
yeah, that simple pattern through the whole song. I did not like it at first, just because I had you know, a presupposition about what I should hear. And then after I heard it, you know, the musicianship's there, the production was amazing, of course. But yeah, that was a standout, and it's their biggest song up to the time. I don't know how they've charted since then, but yeah, that was a shocking moment for me as a fan, and certainly stood out.
Isn't it interesting? I had no expectations back then. I didn't know they had a record coming out. I remember Brian Rousey actually played that for me. There was a radio station in Roanoke, Virginia that played a lot of, they were the best radio station that you could hear, that I recall, and I could pick it up occasionally. They played that, and I thought the thing that made me think was just the very first heavy guitar sound, which is very unusual for Yes. But then when the main riff came in, I thought, well, that's just catchy. You know, I hadn't listened to Yes prior to that. I mean, I may have heard Roundabout. That came out in like October or November of '83.
Yeah.
I didn't. They weren't really on my radar. I didn't get into the classic Yes until '88 or '89.
Wow.
The classic Yes, you know, John Anderson. I was fully on board with the Trevor Raven, you know, incarnation, and listened to 90125 a lot. I really enjoyed it. Big Generator, I enjoyed a lot, but I didn't really start getting into the classic Yes, and it's a while for me to think about. Even after enjoying those two records for years, I never was inspired to listen to, you know, the classic Yes. But when the record Classic Yes was out, whatever year that came out, that's what got me into it, and started listening to Heart of the Sunrise and Long Distance Run Around and all that stuff, and had a new appreciation for him. But I had no expectations of anything when Owner of a Lonely Heart came out, but it totally won me over. I mean, Hold On and Changes, and
I love the album.
That's a great record.
I've worn my LP pretty thin, playing it over and over. But when I first heard it, I was like, "This is not Yes. What have they done?
Yeah,
They've ruined it." But really, it's just another progression.
Yep, I had it on my list too, and I was like, that same reaction. I was like, okay, what's happening here?
Imagine being hearing that. You know, there are plenty of people who hear one song and think this is great, and then they imagine hearing that song and buying a ticket and going to the concert and hearing Starship Trooper or something,
right?
You know, Close to the Edge, something off the wall.
Yeah,
it would be off the wall to the casual fan. So
Yes is on my list, but different track.
Uh-oh.
That it's maybe a bit of a stretch. We'll talk about it. It may
Well,
be a little bit
I've
of a
got to
stretch.
explain everything I have. So
Yeah. Well,
Besides that.
you know, it is atypical. I think
Yeah.
you can definitely say it's I don't think they've ever done anything else like it ever, you know, before or since, you know.
I want to
But
hear
my first track is actually very much in the Beth camp. Very at the time, very unusual for the band, and that's Open Arms by Journey.
Oh,
I think that most people would agree at the time they had not done anything like that. Now, people might associate them with that and that they did a lot of stuff like that, but they didn't.
yeah, there were only two Open Arms, and I think Faithfully were.
Well, Faithfully was much more rocking than Open Arms.
Yeah,
Open
yeah.
Arms was really unusual, you know,
Yeah, especially
and,
so such a slow tempo song too.
and that was on the heavy metal soundtrack.
Yeah,
That's really crazy to think about. But yeah, that there was nothing, they had not done anything like that prior to that. So, I mean, yeah, and this is where I kind of took a liberty where you could say that in my mind, the songs that I came up with, the first song that that band would have come up with that was unlike anything they'd previously done. They may have done something like it later on, but at the time it was highly unusual. And that's how I choose to think about it.
yeah,
You know,
that's
the
valid.
first listener, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, what is this? You know,
Yeah.
and like I said, I have a couple questionable choices that I think fit that criteria, but later on you could say, well, they did other things that were similar to that, but at the time they hadn't. So,
Yeah,
so that's my first
I'll allow
choice.
Yeah,
Well, some of those are launching points for another direction for the
Yeah,
music, right?
definitely did.
And that was kind of it for Journey, because you
Yeah.
know, you think of Journey, that you know, you don't blink when you mention that song in their catalog, you know. But at the time, yeah, definitely different from what they've done before.
Well, I was into them already for a couple of years, and that was really a left turn at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some heavy songs on the album, Mother, Father, and what else?
Keep on running,
Yeah,
lay
yeah,
it down, Stone in Love, even.
yeah,
You know,
exactly. That's
there was
for
a
Journey.
lot of guitar work on that record.
Mhm.
And then then you hear Open Arms, you're like, whoa, I
It's
get
pretty
it.
unusual. Yeah.
Yep, I get it.
All right. Well,
Cool.
that's my first choice. How about you, Grant? You want to go again? Second
Let's
choice.
see here. What am I gonna
Go down there.
do? What?
What?
Hey, don't look at my list, man. He's cheating.
I'm gonna write that down on mine before you can get to it.
I'm gonna go with a. I got a lot, but I'm gonna go with a progressive band from the '70s that had very intricate songs, and then they had a gigantic hit with "Dust in the Wind" by Kansas.
Yeah, I would say that was unusual for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they, you know, their songs were very intricate. I think they're one of the. I think a lot of progressive bands after Kansas, especially more modern bands after the 2000s. I think Point of No Return is such a great album from start to finish.
That's my favorite from them.
I was going to say, I think
Yeah,
that's a
really?
perfect progressive rock album.
Yeah.
And so many bands have been trying to not copy it, but make the perfect progressive rock album, you know, with the heaviness, and yet you got the lightness. You just have that album's got everything. And then smack dab, is it smack dab in the middle? Dust in the Wind
Maybe.
comes up, and it fits the tone of that album
Yeah.
so well. And yet it's
Right.
so it's soft, but not in a bad way. You know what I mean? It's
That's a great arrangement. I mean,
yes,
it's well
amazing.
written.
That's what
You know,
makes
that-
it a Kansas song, I think. The
Yes,
arrangement
yes,
of
definitely.
all the instruments.
But anyway, yeah, that was so they hadn't done anything like that.
Yeah.
Basically, and it wasn't a love ballad like, you know, a lot of bands, they have a love song,
Right.
and they're just trying to get radio airplay because they don't have they need something light and not, you know, raucous or whatever, and they say, well, let's just write a love ballad. And it's a I guess technically it's a ballad, but it's not a love ballad.
Mhm.
It's a death ballad.
Yeah.
But
It's about
yeah,
mortality, you know.
yeah, exactly. And
Well, you get the instrumental, the Spider on
yes,
there, which is very complicated,
oh,
and it's just
super
a
intricate.
rocking song. And
Mhm.
then Dust in the Wind, complete opposite of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if I remember the story correctly, Kerry Livgren was practicing his finger picking.
Yeah,
Right.
And his wife walked by and said, "That's
Right.
really pretty. You should make that a song." And
Right.
he's like, "That's not a Kansas song."
Right.
But you know what? It is a Kansas
it
song.
is a Kansas song.
It is the Kansas
It was
song.
atypical, but now it's a lot of people know them for.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you know, my favorite record is the previous one, Left Overture. You know, I think
Yeah.
that's their most solid record from beginning to end. That's the one I listen to most of the time. It's got Carry On Wayward Son, you know,
Yeah.
of course. But yeah, you know, I've you know, I've met Kerry Livgren many years ago when I was a kid and when I was working with Zion and his family. We all went out to eat Japanese dinner when I was down in Atlanta for a NAMM show, and he was a very, very nice guy. And I talked to him a little bit about gear and stuff, but not about songwriting or anything. I wasn't mature enough at the time to ask about those things. But a very nice guy, and I'm glad I had that experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It's always cool when the people you admire are cool.
Yeah, he was very nice.
Yeah. We've all heard the horror stories about like they were a jerk or they were this or they were that. So
yeah, he was very polite.
Yeah.
Nice.
His whole family were. Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite musicians from the 70s, and he was a very deep guy. And he just on this, he was on the constant, you know, search for,
yeah,
trying to find out who he was and what was the right, way to live his life or whatever.
I saw them on a double bill with Hart. They were
Really?
both equal billing, and every night they switch who is the headliner.
That's good.
Even they're not a really
cool.
headliner, yeah.
Right.
And yeah, that was a great show because at first I thought it was a weird billing because Hart, but Hart's got some heavier stuff too. Their early stuff is a lot heavier than their later songs. But yeah, that was a great show.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge Kansas fan, so I dig it. All right, Mike, what about you, man?
Oh, all right. Let me get my notes out.
Steal another one.
This is dangerous because I write notes and then I don't have to remember things. So if I don't have my notes,
I'm referring to my list.
I had to write notes myself.
Okay. The song I want to talk about, you have to bear with me, kids. This might be a long story. Is from the soundtrack of the greatest film ever made. I've already given it away. Of course, I'm talking about
Roadhouse.
1971's Billy Jack. One Tin Soldier.
Oh my God, really?
Was recorded by, what's the name of the group? I get them mixed up. One Tin Soldier was recorded by a band called the Original Cast, a folk group from Canada. I think it was 69 they recorded that. In 71, they're working on Billy Jack. They wanted it for that movie. So, oh gosh, what's her name? Jinx Dawson was a singer who came into the studio, sang the song with a studio orchestra. And when it was done, she said, "I don't want my name on this record. I want my band's name."
Oh, wow.
So One Tin Soldier came out credited to the band Coven. And Coven is a satanic heavy metal band. So you've got this hippie anti-war protest song, kind of folky pop rock. And I imagine people listening to that and saying, "That's cool. Coven, huh? I'm gonna go check them out." And then you get this satanic heavy metal album that I think Tony Iommi was influenced a little bit by them. But it was a big hit for them. So a lot of people went and checked out Coven and didn't know what to think.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the band went in the studio again. That was a hit for them in 71. The band went into the studio again, all the band members, and recorded it again with the studio orchestra and released it again and had a hit in 73 with the same song.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's I love that story. That it's such a different type of song than what they would usually play. And I think Coven is still around today. I think they're still playing music, but
I know the song very well, and I didn't know where you were going with this.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Where's he going?" Because I might have to throw a flag. But no, that's amazing. That's awesome, dude. I didn't know anything about Coven or Satanic, that's awesome.
When you mentioned the subject for this week, I went back to that because I learned that a few years ago. I thought, oh, this is a great one for the boys and girls out there. Coven, 110 Soldier.
Wow, that is that's the winner.
I was gonna say, that might be the winner.
I don't think I can beat that.
We'll see you later, boys and girls.
You all have to go and watch Billy Jack after this to hear that song.
I've watched that movie within the last 6 months.
Yeah,
I have watched it within the last 6 months.
That movie? The greatest story about pacifism through physical violence that you'll ever see.
Now, is that the Billy Jack with the son of the mayor or whatever, who the Billy Jack puts his car in the lake?
Yeah.
That's the one. If that's what it is, I've seen that within the last 6 months.
I'm going to put this foot against that.
That is
Billy,
that is a different kind of movie.
Next time, leave your boots on.
It's a movie about peace.
Yeah.
And kung fu, or I don't know.
Peace through Taekwondo.
Yeah.
Right.
Born Losers is the first movie in that series, and Billy Jack is probably the best, and then it just goes steeply downhill from there.
Right. Wow. So, interesting.
But great folk rock song, and a fun story.
That is not on my radar at all. I don't know that even though I've seen the movie, I don't remember any song from it that I thought, that's a song I've heard.
It's at the very end when he gets arrested.
Wow. I'll have to revisit that. That does not ring a bell to me at all. You got me stumped. Wow. Interesting.
Well, Jamie, that's on my bingo card. I win.
I think you might have won.
Yeah, I'll see y'all later.
I've got a few here that are again, this is my next pick is going to be one that was the first, especially thinking about the previous two records. And I'm talking about Jethro Tull. When you think about Thick as a Brick and Passion Play and how prog those two records were. War Child comes out in 74 with Bungle in the Jungle. That is as pop as they ever were.
Yep.
And that's one of the very first songs I ever remember hearing from them. And I still think it's a good pop song, but that's commercial, but in a good way.
That's probably the first Jethro Tull I ever heard.
I think it definitely was for me. That was a hit, back in the day, but they didn't stay in that, of course, but that's as commercial as they ever were. But I would say that's atypical for Jethro Tull.
Oh, big time, big time.
So that's my pick.
Good song though.
Yeah. No.
What album is that on?
War Child.
Okay.
Yeah. 1974.
When I was younger, I knew all this information, but as I get older, I'm like, that song that that band does, it kind of goes like this.
Oh yeah. No.
I've got a notebook full of notes. That's how
I don't know why I can remember that stuff.
That's why you're here, Jamie.
Yes,
I don't know why. I have this strange retention for dates. I always have been able to do it, but for information, it's just completely useless.
I brag about you.
Not useless for this podcast, though.
No,
you finally found.
But I brag about your memory. Yeah,
hopefully,
I'm impressed.
That record is a pretty good record. There's some solid songs on it, and I've delved into quite a few of the Jethro Tull records. It's some of it's like you're just talking about Song of the Woods a little bit ago. That's a little deep in the weeds for me.
Yeah,
I like some of the stuff on it, but some of it is just a little bit too much. I don't know. It's a stretch for me.
It's like Hobbit music almost.
I was just getting ready to say that.
I'm such a pop fan, and I think you either are or you're not. I really like pop music, but it doesn't have to be overly commercial. But I like pop music. I always have,
Yeah.
So the stuff that is well written and has some elements to it that are pop, uh,
Mm.
that's a win-win for me.
Yeah.
But I like to be challenged. We all have listened to very experimental, progressive things and enjoy them for different reasons.
Mhm.
But I like pop music. So
Yeah.
when a band does something like that, even like this is not on my list, but "Train in Vain" by the Clash, you could argue that that's you know really atypical of them,
Yeah.
which it
Right.
it really is. That's a great song to me.
Mhm.
That's maybe my favorite
Mm.
Clash song, but I wouldn't say that's typical of their style.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. Yeah.
So
Definitely very poppy.
yeah. All right. Well, that's where my ear goes. So okay, Grant, you're up.
Let's see. Don't look at my list, Michael.
I'm not looking.
I'm going to go with one by our beloved rest in peace Prince. Sign of the Times, or Sign O' the Times, technically. To me, I think that's the first time he ever went with any social or political commentary in a song, because I think he stayed away from that for the most part. And he was trying to address, some issues that were problematic in different communities. And I think he did in a very listenable way, of course.
Right.
But you go back and listen to it. If you've not heard in a while, you listen to it. It's just as an amazing song as a lot of Prince songs are, but it had more, not that there's anything wrong with, funk or dance songs, but it had the depth with the lyrics, that other songs that he had done all previously.
1987.
None of the other songs had. And very, I think it was from a heartfelt place that he did it, because
I think so. Yeah.
He'd never, and I'm paraphrasing in my own mind. I don't remember it exactly, but I think I remember reading an interview once where he said he would never write anything political. He would just want to have good, decent songs that people could enjoy and not have any kind of, push or pull with any kind of political or whatever, social, if you want to say it. And then he addressed a lot of that stuff in that song. I think, sometimes you just had enough. And if you have a platform,
Right.
like Neil Young rocking in the free world or whatever,
Right.
But
I actually listened to that song yesterday, honestly, and not entirely, not all the way through, but I had a playlist. I put together a bunch of playlists this weekend, and it's on a particular playlist, a live version that I bought off of I guess it was a deluxe anniversary reissue of the record that came out in the last year or two. And when that record came out, the studio track was too different from what I was listening to at the time. I was listening to a lot of guitar heavy stuff, and I was enjoying U2 at the time. That was also 87, and Joshua Tree, that period of time. But Sign of the Times it was really too urban for me. But I want to say it had to be that same year, MTV Music Awards, he played it live.
Yeah.
And I saw it. And that it blew me away, because he was playing these complex guitar chords during that performance that were not on the studio track. And it was just so cool. I went, and I had a much, much deeper respect for him than I had ever had as a guitar player.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, geez. I thought, this guy is way beyond what I even thought he was. And I still am amazed by that arrangement.
Oh, yeah.
And the performance that I bought, that live performance, I think it was somewhere in Germany. that was recorded. And it's pretty similar to the MTV, but I still think the MTV Video Music Award from '87 is the best version of that I ever heard. I wish that they would release it, like officially.
If Prince had only been the lead guitarist in a popular band, we'd be talking about Prince in a whole different way, but just as amazed,
we'd still be talking about him.
Yeah, exactly. Right? That's what I mean.
Because he's so good.
Exactly. But you said
that's good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I didn't have any expectations from him as a political commentator, whether him excluding that from his songwriting or anything. I was at the time, I was very much a casual fan. I mean, he had these hits that you couldn't ignore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Purple Rain. And then, what's the next record that had Raspberry Beret on it?
Yeah. Under the Graffiti Bridge. No, that was,
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
85.
Whatever
that record is called had America on it and Alphabet Street.
Yeah.
I think. And Raspberry Beret, whatever that record is called.
Oh, is that? No, it's not Love Sexy.
No, that's 88.
Yeah. Sorry, Prince. We're getting
anyway. Whatever that follow up to Purple Rain was.
Yeah.
That was just, and then Sign of the Times, Kiss, the song Kiss. Was that Under a Cherry Moon or?
Yes, and that's an underrated album. That's almost all the songs are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean he just was cranking out the hits, and whether you liked it or not, it's kind of like when I was talking about REM. It's just in the public consciousness. It's just like you can't ignore it. You might not like it, but it's memorable and it's well written, and that's writing songs is the hardest thing that any musician can do. And if you are good enough to have songs stick around, I mean, you're pretty good. You've cracked the code. So, and he has so many amazing songs. But yeah, great artist for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Mike. Do you have one final choice, or did you have
one final?
Let's just keep going.
Right time. I've got another curveball to throw you.
Okay.
Crazy Horses by the Osmonds.
Also from 1971.
What
was that? 71 or 73?
Yeah, that was 71.
Okay. The Osmonds, of course, started out as a barbershop quartet. They got a TV gig on
Andy
Williams show, and then they started recording pop tunes. They didn't really have a real direction. It's just whatever it came to them. I feel
Bad Apple.
Yeah, Bad Apple. I think it was their third album. Got a little hard rock, but it's still pop radio friendly. For the kids out there. Donny Osmond was coming along as a solo artist, and kind of he was doing cover tunes, Paul Anka and some older stuff, even a Roy Orbison tune. And he became a teen idol and still recording with the Osmonds at the same time. So you kind of remember them as that kind of teeny bop, teenage kind of pop music. And then Crazy Horses comes along. And the song itself, Crazy Horses, is just a rockin' affair. You get the impression that all the adults left the room and the Osmond brothers were like, we can go crazy. We can stay up past 9. Let's do something. And I heard this song compared to Deep Purple, and I can hear that in it. It's just, it is not what you expect from the Osmond brothers.
Well, now I've got something to go listen to tonight.
And it's so rocking. The only thing that gives it away is the white delivery of the line.
Right. The
Osmond brothers have to be the whitest band ever. But they were having a good time, and it really is a good rocking song. I think Paul Gilbert said that was one of his favorite songs, one of his influences. There's another song. I can't remember the name of it now. I should have written it down. But it's very much a Led Zeppelin song to start off with. It's kind of like the Immigrant Song. It kind of has that feel. But it's the Osmonds, and and it actually was I don't know if it was a big hit for them, but the album did well, and it's a big influence on a lot of
That's crazy.
musicians growing up, apparently.
Wow.
And I've been torturing my wife this week with listen to this Osmond song, because they had a hit song called Yo-Yo, which is a great little R&B kind of pop song. It could be a Jackson 5 song, but you compare that to Crazy Horses and Night and Day, and it was kind of the swan song of the that trajectory for the Osmonds, because they didn't do as well after that. And Donnie Marie came around. That was that's kind of what saved them. But
you know a lot about the Osmonds.
There you go.
I learned something new today.
Donnie is so cute.
I do own that song.
Donnie.
I purchased Crazy Horses on iTunes, so I do own it.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. I gotta listen.
I do own it.
You
They
do.
strike.
What's that song that I'm talking about? It has that Led Zeppelin feel.
Oh, well, I don't own the record, just the song. Sorry,
okay.
I don't own the record.
Yeah.
If I've heard it, I don't recall, but I'm going to be shocked if I have heard it and forgot.
It is wacky.
You've heard it. It's just so weird.
Okay.
It is.
It's a very strange
I'm going to at least
vocal delivery.
I'm going to listen to it later this evening. And then
it is heavy. It is heavy, as you could imagine the Osmonds being, but it's just very weird. It just sounds like it's just weird.
And Donnie was going through puberty at the time, so he did not sing on the album.
Did you consult your beat files for this?
I pulled up my old Sweet 16 magazine collection.
I always thought of them during that period. I mean, not at the time, but later. They were the band that you would see on Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I think of when I think of that period of time. Yeah, they were the kind of band that you would see or hear. You know,
they had such a strange career, because the Osmonds were putting out albums and top 40 songs, and Donnie's releasing songs on his own at the same time. So they're kind of competing, I guess, to an extent. So I think that's one of the reasons you get them mixed up, and even though Donnie's were more they were covers, so they were already hits. It's hard to remember what those songs were.
Yeah.
But Crazy Horses stands out, especially for that band. But it's a wacky, wonderful song.
One Bad Apple, I think, is their crowning achievement song.
Yeah.
I don't know who wrote that song, but that's my favorite. I think that is a good pop song.
Yeah, that's
Crazy Horses is just too bizarre. You know, for me, it's just too weird.
Yeah.
It's as good as it is. I mean, it is good in its own right, but it's just bizarre.
Yeah.
One Bad Apple is that's well written and well recorded, and just delivered well. It's sang well.
So solid song.
I think that holds up for pop songs from that period of time.
Yeah.
So, well, cool, man. You're throwing some, like I said,
your
weird ones at us.
Your choices are as equal as your eclectic listening that we sometimes get from you.
Oh, I was holding my breath. I didn't know he was going.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, I knew. I thought you guys might pull out the obvious. I thought, well, I'm going to go.
Yeah, I've got a couple obvious.
I got some obvious that I skipped over, but
actually, I don't think that any of mine are obvious. But
yeah, I'll agree.
What we'll do is, Mike, I don't know if you have any more. I'll mention one since I'm on
a speed round. We'll do a speed round.
Yeah, we'll do a speed round and get.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, all right. So my next one is going to be this again. This might be controversial. It might be. Oh no. I'm going to say, Tom Petty, don't come around here no more.
Oh, okay. I agree. I'll allow it.
It's just nothing. There was nothing like that in his catalog before then.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was weird.
He and Dave Stewart probably sat around and had one too many of something and said, "Hey, listen to this."
I mean, it's well written. I mean, it's obviously survived. It's good, but it's not Tom Petty. Yes.
Hey, at the time, I felt the same thing. I heard that, and I'm like, "Oh, that's different."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I get it.
Tom Petty,
I get it,
different.
but it's definitely different.
Now that's not as extreme as, I have a couple other choices, but they are deep, deep cuts.
Yeah.
And I
And
don't know
what
that
year was
most
that?
people
What
most
year was
people wouldn't even know them.
what year was Don't Come Around Here No More?
85.
85. Yeah.
85. Okay.
Yeah, that was on Southern Accents, I believe.
Yeah, that could have been a car song. If Benjamin
Yeah.
Orr was singing,
Mm-hmm.
then I would, I would expect that. But yeah, totally different for Tom Petty.
Yeah. Good
Yes.
choice. Good choice.
Okay. Well, Grant, do you have another one?
Sure. We're going to do unusual or we're going to do a speed round?
Well, do you want to go ahead and just go through? I've got about 3 or 4 more picks.
All
We
right.
could do a speed round.
I'll do a speed round here. I'm going to go with Ice Cube. It Was a Good Day, because that was exactly what it says. It was a good day, and there was no controversy. There was nothing bad happened. He wasn't singing about anyone's plight. He
Mhm.
wasn't singing about the ever popular police. He wasn't singing about anything controversial. He just had a good day. He played some basketball. He had a cheeseburger. He drove around. He got laid. It was a good day. I mean, and that was at the time, that was unusual for him because,
For that style of music.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For what he was talking about and he was doing. It was just a smooth, chill song, and still
That's my favorite song
Yeah.
by him.
That's a
It's
great
just
song.
it just feels good.
Exactly. It
What
was
was that, 93?
I think
93
so, yeah.
maybe?
Yeah.
That would have been the year after the Chronic
Yeah.
Dr. Dre record, I think. I think it was 93. Yeah, I don't know if that's a sample, whatever the music is from that, but
I don't know either.
it's a
But
great choice,
it's
whoever
fantastic.
played
That
that, or
guitar lick is amazing.
Mhm.
it's really good. I always enjoyed it even then, Mike, do you have ones for speed around?
Yes. My mom bought me this 45 because she knew I liked the Kinks at the time. I listened to the Kinks. I wasn't a big fan, but I liked them. But it was I think it was near the end of the disco era when the Kinks put out Superman. And if you see them play Superman live, they play it as a straight ahead rock song. But at the time when the 45 was made in the studio, it had a disco feel.
Really?
And I'm like, what am I listening to?
That would have been on Low Budget from 1979.
Yeah, Low Budget. That's right.
Yeah.
And I don't think the rest of the album's like that, but Superman was a minor hit, I think.
Right.
But it very much surprised me when I heard that 4 on the floor disco beat kind of thing going on with the band that wrote Lola. And you really got me.
Yeah.
So definitely a standout song.
This has got nothing to do with Low Budget, except for the live versions on the live record that came out, One More for the Road, or From the Road. That's a great record. 1980. It's got all those songs from Low Budget in live form. Catch Me, I'm Falling, and that's definitely one of my favorite songs from them from that period of time. And
I'll have to check that out.
That's a great live record.
Yeah.
It's just got good energy on it. But yeah, I always enjoyed that.
All right, Jamie, speed round.
Okay, I've got Yes, Leave It.
I love the beginning of that song.
Yeah.
It's unlike anything they ever did. And it was a hit.
Yeah.
I don't know to what extent. I don't know what it charted, but that was a hit.
That was a big deal on MTV too.
It was played on MTV.
A big presentation where they made like 8 versions of the video. And
oh yeah, I remember that. Wow, I forgot about that.
And then the last video, they spliced scenes from all the videos together.
I think the only unfortunate thing about that song, it didn't live on. In classic rock radio, it didn't. Yeah. It just was, I guess, too unusual to have an afterlife.
Yeah.
And a lot of songs from that period of time. I don't even know if like Changes is played very often on classic rock radio, and I think it is fully deserving of it.
Yeah.
That's in my top songs from them, period.
Oh yeah, that's great.
But Leave It was really unusual. That whole record was experimental, but like I said, this was one that was a bit of a stretch, you know.
Well,
But it was just it's very unusual,
Mhm.
you know, and it was, I would technically say it was a hit at the time. So that's my choice for a speed round. I have a couple more.
I do too. You want to do one more?
All right, yeah.
Okay. Blur is the band. Song 2 is the song. Because they have never done anything like that before and never since. And plenty of people bought that album and was like, hey, where's the rest of these heavy songs?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't it unusual that, or a shame that that kind of worked against them? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's the downside to this.
I think it was both, but more maybe 60-40 against them. But it did get some people to listen to them and actually did like them, because at the time there was the big battle between who's the best British band, Oasis or Blur. Right. And Oasis is a totally different band compared to Blur.
Yeah.
Blur is quirky and super English, as you
Right.
would think.
Very,
You know,
yeah,
it's
I
quirkiness.
agree.
No insult. We love you, UK.
Right.
But Oasis is just, you know, pop song after pop song after they're just churning them out, you know, and they're totally nothing like Blur. And there was room for both of them. I don't know if it was media created or whatever, but yeah, song 2 is an amazing song, but there's nothing else like it on that album. Or
it survived. It's a classic.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go with U2, Desire.
Hey, that was on my list.
Was it? That's at the time. They came out of what, Rattle and Hum, 1988.
Yeah.
Nothing in their catalog like that.
Yep, that's why I put it on mine. It's like it's just,
and yet it's as catchy as anything they ever did. I think. I mean, that's a song that survives on a playlist for me.
Yeah.
But that's so ordinary compared to their previous songs.
Oh yeah, it's very American, very rock, very
Right.
3 chords, and you know, what is it? EAD is basically the verses, and
I think it's DAE. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah.
It's just your basic. It's almost, I don't want to say rockabilly, but you know.
Yeah. Well, there's that version of the Bo Diddley beat, you know, behind it.
Yeah.
Right.
Pushing it along.
Yeah.
So it is different for them.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have another one? Anybody have another one?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to, I've got a few, but I'll go with Do You Think I'm Sexy? Rod Stewart. You know,
yes, I think you're sexy.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's get back to the music. You know, mid 70s were really affected by the emergence of punk rock and disco.
Yep.
Those two things really upset the apple cart in the mid 70s. And people who said they hated disco, like Rod Stewart, ended up putting out a disco album.
Did he say he hated disco?
He
I didn't
did.
know that was a quote of his.
He just despised disco.
I didn't know that.
But he knew where the money was. So the guy who sang with Jeff Beck and Faces decided to put out a disco song, and became one of his biggest hits at the time.
Didn't Carmine Appice write that song?
He was
wrote it.
He was involved in it. Yeah. And I think they were sued at one time because the melody and the rhythm parts were taken from 2 different songs. But
I didn't know that.
But yeah, that was a huge hit. And at the time, you know,
it was a gigantic.
I don't think I knew who Rod Stewart was at the time. So that's the song I knew him from. But, you know, so many great songs before that. Is a totally different singer. And that song came out and became just a huge hit.
Right.
Oh, everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
This is a different subject, but Tonight's the Night was a song that I think I probably became aware of who Rod Stewart was. I still think that's one of his best songs.
Yeah.
Hot Legs the previous year, because Blondes Have More Fun that had Do You Think I'm Sexy was 78, late 78.
Yeah.
So,
Hot Legs was on his previous album to that.
Yep.
Yeah. And he was another prolific songwriter. He just had hits. You know, I mean, he just had every record had hits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do You Think I'm Sexy was, I guess at the time was, that was a left turn for him. I kind of look at it more as, even though he was adopting what was popular, I don't know that I would say it's really atypical of what he was doing, but it was I looked at it as him adopting what was around and evolving. Um, and I guess a lot of artists, to survive, you have to do that.
Yeah,
You
well,
know, I
Kiss
mean,
tried.
Well, a lot of
yeah,
it, just like I said, Superman by the Kinks, that
right,
everybody had to, I feel like maybe they were forced by the nature of music at the time to
right.
go in that direction. Cheap Trick's Dream Police album has Gonna Raise Hell, and that
Yeah.
goes into a disco groove,
Yeah, you wonder, or I wonder if how much pressure the record label puts on bands. Um,
What's
I mean,
uh my brain is gone. ELO.
ELO Discovery, they were accused
That
of selling out.
whole album. I'm stumped for words. Sorry, this is an aside. A disco aside. Now is the new segment. A disco aside. Someone I was read somewhere where someone said ELO went disco for the album. I was like, no way, no freaking way. I went because I hadn't heard that album in years. I went and put it on. I was like, oh, this whole album's disco.
I love
you
that
know
album.
what? I do too, man.
Great
Shine
bass
a
line.
Little Love and Last Train to
But
London.
the whole
I think it sounds contemporary. I
Yeah,
don't think that they really adopted the disco.
well, they did
I
it
think
in
they
their
were
way,
trying.
like Jeff Lynne always does.
It definitely sounds like ELO, but songs like
Yeah.
Last Train to London and what
That
was the one you
is-
just mentioned?
Shine a Little Love.
Shine a Little Love. Those two are obvious disco songs, but they're obvious ELO songs too.
Yeah.
So they are good songs.
That was the first album I bought by ELO, and I
Yeah.
became the biggest fan. I went backwards and bought their albums,
Right.
all their albums after
I
that.
have another ELO on my list.
Of course, we've all got a different opinion, but
Yeah.
I look at what he did at the time was he adopted what was current
Mm-hmm.
and in his own way to stay relevant. But it didn't sound like a sellout to me at all.
Yeah.
No,
You know,
I'm not saying
I mean,
that at all.
you could say something like, and I happen to like this song very much, and it doesn't have a bad connotation to me, but I'm sure for a lot of people who are older, when you listen to something like I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss,
That's
it
what
was
I was
probably like, that's a sellout. I can't be objective about it because I was so young when it came out that for me, it was just like, okay, it's different. And I was such a recent fan. I didn't have years invested. I mean, maybe a couple of years, but I would have accepted anything. I thought, okay, well, this is what they're putting out, so it's good, But I don't know what other people were listening to at the time that would judge that. At the same time, that year, 1979, had like Breakfast in America by Supertramp.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, amazing.
Which was maybe the best album of that year, commercially and sonically and creatively. That's as solid as anything that I can recall off the top of my head for that year.
The Wall.
But, The Wall, yeah, definitely. That was definitely a crowning achievement. But it's just so funny how bands, they have to do what they have to do to survive. But I think the best bands take the stuff that's available to them and try not to make it so obvious.
Put their own spin on it, so to speak. Yeah.
And
I think it's valid if they do that.
Mark on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's valid if they a well-written song is a well-written song, but if you utilize whatever style is current, I think it's okay.
I just never thought of it as disco. And then, like I said, I read that somewhere and I was like, there's no way. My memory, there's no way.
I can hear it.
And
I went and
put it on like,
is.
what the what?
Yeah. Okay. I've got this is kind of a strange one. People are probably automatically going to go, no way. There's three songs that I could pick by this band that were very different. 4 songs. And I'm going to go ahead and mention all 4 of these songs because we're reaching the end here anyway. Okay. Queen is the band.
Oh,
We Will Rock You. the song "We Will Rock You" is unlike anything that they had done prior to that. Now we associate that with just the band, and it's classic, and it's a kind of stadium anthem. But at the time, they hadn't done anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, "Crazy Little Thing Called Love." That was the first song that I really was a left turn. Great written song, one of the best guitar solos of that period. Very catchy, big hit. They hadn't done anything like that before. And then another one bites the dust.
I had another one on my list. Yeah.
That one right there was so unusual for them. And that was potentially, I think that might be their biggest hit they ever had besides Bohemian Rhapsody.
Mm-hmm.
And then Under Pressure with David Bowie. Very unusual.
Yeah, that was more
I
like
can remember hearing that bass riff for the first time going, this is garbage. But then after listening to it time and time again and hearing these little subtle guitar things that Brian May's doing, and then in that vocal that Freddie Mercury does toward the very end where it's just so passionate.
Oh, yeah,
it's
it's
just
a
like
ride.
full of emotion. I'm like, oh man, this is good. This is good stuff. You know, it's one of those things that a young set of ears has to kind of experience and listen to and get into before you fully appreciate it. But on the surface, it's like, this isn't any good.
You have the palate for it at first, and then you have to have a foundation.
It was all new to my ears. And then after hearing it for a few times, I realized, oh, this is a lot deeper than I recognized. But that was the beginning of me appreciating all these subtle guitar tones that Brian May offered. And at first listen, it wasn't obvious, you know, and then on repeated listens, you hear all these little subtleties. It's just that's what makes that song so tremendous to me.
Yeah.
But it's a great song, you know, and, you know, you could mention other songs that they did after that, like Body Language, you know, that was pretty unusual, but they had quite a few songs that were not typical of their style. I mean, when they came out.
Yeah, definitely. I gotta quit saying definitely so much.
Yeah, that was one of my choices, and these are just kind of like honorable mentions. Joni Mitchell's "Help Me."
Okay.
Pop song, not like the rest of her catalog, and that was the very first song I ever heard from her.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's not typical of her style, before or after.
Yeah, she's so quirky, and that's like a pop song.
And that's a great pop song.
Oh yeah,
it still survives. My last one is the weird one of the bunch, and it's ZZ Top's "Layla," which I bet you've never heard.
I have never heard that.
Thankfully, I've never heard that.
Yeah, it's off El Loco that had Pearl Necklace and Tube Snake Boogie.
Oh yeah, maybe I have heard it.
You probably haven't heard it, but it was the very first thing that I heard from that record. Whatever radio station at the time played it, and it's like, whoa, this doesn't sound like this new ZZ Top doesn't sound anything like the band. And but it sounds sort of like Rough Boy that came out 5 years later.
Yeah,
or 4 years later, whatever. It's much more in that style, but it's even more subdued. It's terrible.
it's
offense
even more
to ZZ Top. You know, I love ZZ Top, but it's not typical of them at all. It's
like
really atypical. But I don't think this was a hit, and that's why this is being mentioned last. So that's why it didn't come up earlier.
Gotcha.
But very unusual. That was one of the first songs that I put down on my list, and I thought, but that wasn't a hit, you know. So I guess, you know, that's kind of where I tried to put these songs that were a notable achievement on the charts.
Yeah,
that was the whole point of this, I guess. You know, but all right. Well, that's my list. Do you guys have any more you want to mention or anything?
I can throw in a couple more. I'll throw in one more.
Okay.
Everyone's favorite glam rock band, Poison.
Okay.
Something to Believe In. Was also like something they had never done. I don't believe in any of their songs they had addressed any kind of social issues or political issues.
Now, is this more lyrically that you're talking about?
Yeah, and the song was slower, obviously. had more acoustic guitars in it, and I think a really fantastic little solo by CC, which I think he was an underrated guitarist, really, in my opinion, because of their aspect. But a lot of his solos are really, really good, very musical.
They're catchy.
Yeah, and but anyway, yeah, that's. I mean, song talks about veterans, it talks about the homeless, and other than maybe Phil Collins, maybe Another Day in Paradise, no one had really, people weren't really talking about that because that was back in the day where music was just feel good. We're having fun, let's party, let's hang out, and not that it's not about that today, but there are a lot of more political bands now than there were back then, and that's, I actually re-listened to that song because I wasn't sure about it. I was like, am I going to stick this on here? And I was like, wow, it holds up. I mean, I have a thumbs up for it,
I have a Poison playlist. I'm not embarrassed to say it's not currently on my phone, but those guys had a dozen songs that made the charts, and I think they've survived. I don't listen to it that often, but in the mood.
If we're listening to the radio and we're driving around and Poison comes on, we turn it up.
Nothing But a Good Time, I think, has aged really well. That's a good rock song.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm not embarrassed to say that I've never voluntarily listened to Poison.
I mean, I don't really have any.
Michael doesn't listen to Poison, but
I don't
he
have
loves
any feelings.
Hey,
it's no judgment for me. I met.
No, I don't ever.
I met CC DeVille in October of '90.
Oh wow.
Warrant were opening up for them in Greensboro, and the guitar company I was associated with had no interest in trying to get them to buy a guitar. Didn't think it was going to happen, and they were probably right. But I said, hey, can you get me tickets to the show? And he got me tickets to the Will Call booth, and I went backstage and hung out. And saw Warrant. Poison did not play that night, but I did meet up with CC DeVille, and he signed a backstage pass, and he was a nice guy. I never saw him play though, because I think Bret Michaels had a diabetic situation or something. I don't recall exactly, but they didn't perform that night. But Warrant were fun, and it was that was my CC DeVille moment. I had a handful of moments like that with people back for a handful of years. A lot of famous people at the time that I rubbed elbows with, but he was a nice guy.
I think he's a great player. Even if you don't like the particular song and a solo pops up and you're like, okay, that's pretty cool.
He plays the solo on Cherry Pie on Warrant.
Really?
That's him. Yeah, he's playing the solo on that. And I'm sure that's why they were opening up the tour. There was association there, but it was fun. That's kind of how I look at it. I mean, it's not deep. It's fun.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what I mean.
It always doesn't always have to be cerebral.
Yeah, Poison was a fun band, and then here's this song about, whoa, y'all are making me have feelings,
I never got choked up listening to a song by them, but I mean, it's what it is. I enjoy. I think that's the thing that's as listeners, sort of where we all come from. We listen to different things based on our mood, and actually to kind of go back to REM for a minute. Some of the melancholy stuff that's of any artist, but by REM, there's a song called Leaving New York that I forget what record it's from.
Is that New Adventures in Hi-Fi?
It might be.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting melody, and it's one of my go-to tracks that I've discovered recently. I hadn't heard it before. And like I said, I mentioned Find a River. That's just got this really interesting mood on it that always kind of drew me in. And the stuff that's just it's just more melancholy. It's not necessarily, a stand or
two of my absolute favorite REM songs are Night Swimming and The Wrong Child.
Yeah, The Wrong Child is what record is that? Is that from Green?
Yeah, it's on Green. Yeah. And
I'm not into the lyrical content as much as you would be. Just it's I'm totally attracted by melodies,
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, and it's later that I get to the lyrical part of it, you know, but yeah, Michael Stipe was he was as good a lyricist as anybody from that time. And
Yeah.
And he had a great way of being a great abstract lyricist at
Right.
times too, and which
right,
surprisingly, that's hard to do, to still get something across. And I know what you're talking about, but
right.
it's abstract. You know, you're not just telling me exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting when those guys were in the interview with CBS, they were just talking, you know, it was funny to hear Peter Buck and Michael Stipes like, well, you know, Bill Berry and Mike are really great musicians, but me and Peter are not. It's like, you know, it's like I don't know how I'd have felt that if I was Peter Buck. It's like, oh, you know. But yet they all knew their place. You know, Peter
Yeah.
Buck was I think that most people would agree that his arpeggiating, you know, his right hand was really important for the early part of the band, and nobody really sounded like that back then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And where he gravitated toward the later part of the career, where everything was sort of like with a fuzz box and overdrive, kind of, it's a little shifty for me, you
Yeah.
know.
Not my
But
favorite.
but I still like it a lot. But I'm a big fan of those guys. But Mike Mills is sort of like the, you know, the hero of the band for me.
Yeah, he's the
He's
secret
the
weapon.
best musician of the. He's their secret weapon.
That bass
Man,
playing
those
and those harmonies, man, forget
harmony
it.
vocals. Oh yeah, you know. And if Mason Pitts ever sees this, you know, Mason Pitts is a great bass player that I played with back in the day, and over at his house, his band at the time, they were playing Finest Work Song, rehearsing it, and I don't recall Sammy's last name. He played guitar and was singing these Mike Mills background vocals, but I had never heard the song Finest Work Song before, and I thought that's really good, you know. But they were much hipper than I was at the time, and listening to and appreciating REM and U2 in a way that I wasn't appreciative of until much later. But to hear a live band or a person play that live, it really made me understand. And Mason was playing Mike Mills bass parts really well, you know. So that was a fun to experience that at the time and have that sort of appreciation for them.
Nice.
But,
Yeah.
so anyway, that's my REM thing. You know, they really have they've been fun to revisit some of that stuff here recently, and I've really enjoyed it. But well, if you guys have anything to add before we sign off?
No, I'm sorry, I got lost in your eyes again, like earlier. But no,
Are you referencing
Okay.
a Debbie Gibson song?
Hey,
Is that atypical for
maybe
Debbie Gibson?
that's for next week.
I think we should all
About
listen
Debbie
to a
Gibson.
Debbie Gibson song here.
We'll have a show about Debbie
Yeah, I'm
Gibson.
gonna have to listen to One Tin Soldier though for sure. But,
Yeah, I know this. I don't have to listen to it. I just didn't know anything about the band Coven.
Well, no, you
yeah,
can
me either.
go,
me either.
I'm
break
going to
out
listen
the,
to the
Osmonds.
Osmond song. Is that's what I'm
Yeah.
going to listen to. I can't. Right? Jamie says I've heard it. I probably have, but I don't.
I don't want to hear it again.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
No.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe I have subconsciously blocked it from my conscious mind,
It's not that bad.
and
It's not that bad.
Make me listen to it, and it's
Yeah.
like it throws me into some trauma. I'm gonna be knocking
No.
on your door.
Well,
Oh, it's not that bad.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So, well, thanks everyone for checking in and watching us this week, and we'll see you next week with another episode. I think that we have a topic that will be a lot of fun.
and if you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe and comment about
Give us your
Trans-
atypical songs.
hat.
Ditto.
My hat. You know.
Yes.
What?
I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Everyone mentioned a song. I'd love to have in comments somebody mention a song that would fit what we just discussed. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week. See you then.
Peace.